Today I want to talk about something that I realized, I guess not realized, but became more evident in my mind over the last few days because something it's like because an event had happened recently, and it's the topic is who you surround yourself with. I used to think friends were just about having fun, like as long as you're laughing, going out, doing stuff, that's what matters. But over time, I started to realize something, but I never really put it into effect. Who you're around actually shapes who you become, and who you are around is a description of you. The people you hang out with are a direct depiction of you. Like if they do something and you're with them when they do something, you are looked at as the same because you are with them and you are considered them your friend. If every time you meet your friends it turns into drinking, wasting nights, doing random dumb shit, then slowly that becomes your normal, and you don't even notice it really happening. you know um, I had this one friend out here, and this happened within the last week. I have this really good friend, obviously, that I always talk about, my friend Lucas, and I'm not going to name this kid's name, but this kid, I would only hang out with him when we go to the bars, and the only time that I would see him was when I was drunk. So I never really realized it like that because I wasn't sober when I was seeing this kid, and every time that I was with him was to drink. There was really nothing, even to this fact of going to where I got a tour of this monastery he works at, and there was a bar outside and he wanted to go to the bar after. Something as simple as that. And my friend Lucas made me realize it because this kid showed up and was pissed drunk and wanted to drink at 5 p.m. on a Saturday. And I didn't. That was the first time that I looked back and I realized, what am I doing? This kid offers nothing to me positive besides a kid to go out with, to drink with. And I've been wanting to cut down on my drinking almost entirely. So having someone like that who only wants to just get drunk and do dumb shit, like, wasn't going to help me at all. There was nothing positive that this relationship, brought me. And I really sat back and realized that we're at dinner. Me and this kid are at dinner after we left, and his head's on the table, and I'm just sitting there as people are walking by us outside, because in Rome most of the restaurants have outside area, and if you smoke cigarettes like me, you want to sit outside when you eat. And we're sitting there, and I'm just sitting there smoking a cigarette, and his head's just face down on the table, and I'm like, this is a direct depiction of me. I feel secondhand embarrassment because of the actions of this individual, and I never realized it until I consider this kid a brother, Lucas. I consider him a brother. I love this kid. He's one of the only kids that I will actually accept and listen to and take advice from, because I feel like as if he's in a better spot in life than me, and I think that you shouldn't really take advice from somebody you wouldn't trade places with. If you can't see yourself going in his shoes and living in that person's shoes and doing what they do on a day-to-day basis, then you shouldn't really take like actual advice from them. But this kid Lucas, I consider him to be doing better than I am in my life, and I think that's true. So I will take any advice from this kid that he gives me, and I will take it in and I will absorb it. And he was just talking to me on like a friendship level. He was like, dude, like, I want to see you with people who better you, who uplift you and do all, and want to see you do positive things. And hanging out with a kid who only wants to drink and do dumb shit is not gonna do anything positive for you. And then there's this kid. I had this friend out here who. I don't have any negative thoughts towards this kid. Mind you, he was abroad, so his wavelength was different than mine. I live out here full time. I'm not just on abroad. I'm basically on a 4-month vacation essentially. But I still had, but like there was a difference, you know. This kid that I was talking about that was abroad, you know, we had conversations on a deeper level than just going out and drinking. Yes, he was primarily the main kid that I drank with outside of the one kid that I was talking about prior. But this kid, I could have conversations with, you know, adult, normal human conversations with on deeper level. So I wasn't really, I didn't consider him. I wouldn't group him in this same section. You know, this kid Ryan is the kid that was abroad. You know, we actually could be really good friends. You know, I'm gonna visit him when I'm back home. He lives pretty close to me, not close, but he lives within 3 hours of me. So I'm probably gonna go visit him. You know, I consider him a good friend that I made. He wasn't. We could have conversations about like politics, about the market, about all this, like my things that I had interest in. You know, with this one kid, the only time that we would hang out and that we would do things was to go to the bars and drink. You know, I just can't. I realized, I sat back and I realized, I'm like this offers nothing positive to my life. You know, it's what is the point of putting my time towards something that doesn't offer anything positive towards my life when I'm 23 years old and I don't have time to be doing dumb shit anymore. I have to focus on my future, you know? And I'm not saying you have to cut off everybody or suddenly become serious all the time. But you have to be honest about the direction people are pulling you in, you know? Real friends aren't just ones who hype you up in the moment. They're ones who push you forward even without saying much. You know, they're ones who don't make you feel weird for wanting more out of life. You know, this kid Lucas, mind you, I've been friends with Lucas probably for half of my life at this point, and he's only been supportive and been pushing me towards this social media, YouTube, you know, this my backpacking stuff. He's only been pushing me and motivating me to better that version and to better those things that I want to do. You know, and I had noticed this myself when I stopped saying yes to going out and started focusing more on my goals. I actually started feeling more in control, more clear about where I'm going. You know, I've gone out once in the last month, and having that clear mind on weekends, you know, I've grown to enjoy sitting in my apartment in this exact seat on a Saturday night, just doing work and envisioning a future that I want to have, you know. And yeah, sometimes that means being alone for a bit, like I said. But being alone and building yourself is better than being surrounded by people who keep you stuck in that same negative cycle. Because at the end of the day, your environment matters more than motivation. And your future is heavily influenced by who you spend your time with. So choose carefully. With all that being said, I'm going to end this video off here, and a little shorter one today, but I have the OKC playoff game at 2:30, so I'm staying up to watch that. But yeah, with that being said, I will talk to you guys later and have a great night.